It's 8 a.m. from Fox 35. This is Good Day.
Coming up on 8:05, continuing to follow developing news out of Brevard County right now. We're waiting to learn the name of a woman killed in a violent officer-involved shooting. This all started about 6:30 last night at a home on Grant Avenue in Satellite Beach. Police say a 22-year-old man started shooting at his family. Inside the home was his girlfriend, their 1-month-old child, the shooter's mom, and her husband. When officers arrived, they found 3 people had been shot, and then officers say the man challenged them, so they were forced to shoot him. The man was pronounced dead at an area hospital. His father says his son has had a history of mental problems.
I would say he's been angry for a while, but nothing on this magnitude.
A woman was pronounced dead at the scene. Police have not released her name yet, but we do know that the baby and the shooter's mom were not hurt. You can look for updates all throughout the day today.
Well, this officer-involved shooting was the 9th in recent weeks, and this brings up the question, when is it safe for officers to open fire, and when is it a public safety risk? Joining us now live in the studio is the cop doc, Dr. Richard Weinblatt. Thanks so much for joining us this morning.
Nice to see you, Heidi.
It's not a topic you want to talk about, but it seems like it's a recurring issue here in Central Florida and really across the country. We keep seeing more and more of these officer shootings. About a week ago, there was one that happened in a Target parking lot, a crowded Target parking lot, and people were saying, is this a good idea? Of course, we need to stop these bad guys. Some of them could be out shooting, doing other things, but is it appropriate at that time? Is there a safer time? Could they follow them to someplace else where there's not innocent people standing around?
Well, one of the things, Heidi, and we were talking about this a little bit before, and I've gotten a lot of questions about this, is you have to weigh, if you let them go further, do we end up in a chase? Remember, there was a big blow up about the chase that happened in Orange County and Brevard County a few weeks ago. Okay, where the chase went on for hours and hours, and that put people in danger. So the question becomes is, you have to weigh these things, and officers have split seconds to make these decisions. In the Target case, they were in a remote area of the parking lot, and the officer decided to box them in, which was done precisely to stop those kind of long, drawn-out, dangerous pursuits from happening. But when the suspect decides to take the action, such as move the vehicle towards the officers, or in Satellite Beach, shoot towards the officers or challenge the officers have to defend themselves and others. So they have to make these decisions quickly. They
do have to make those split-second decisions. Coming into the decisions, oftentimes you have to think about what they're chasing them for. Do most oftentimes, when they're in that situation, know what this person's wanted for, or is it sometimes up in the air and they don't know and they have to make that decision without that information? Well,
each situation is different, and there's about 6 or 7 that we've had recently that people have questioned me a lot about. In the Satellite Beach situation, it's pretty clear cut. I mean, the officer gets challenged. They have to respond to that challenge in an instant. The Target situation, it was a financial credit card situation. They were after these people. They were thieves, all right? But they chose to bring it up to a more violent level, and the officers have to respond to that. And that's the problem. They have to sit there and weigh these things. And you know, how do you do it? What's making people notice it, it hasn't necessarily been an increase in the number of officer-involved shootings if you look over the course of the year. What they've noticed it's almost a wolf pack mentality where everything sits all in that same time frame, and it's happened very quickly in a compressed time frame, and that's why people are noticing it, because it's one after the other, after the other, after the other. But if you drew them out chronologically over time, it wouldn't seem so apparent.
Yeah, I think it seems like a lot, and some of them have stuck in the news. There's a case from months back where a young man who was being chased for apparently stealing cars at the time, unarmed, and he was shot possibly hundreds of times in this car, and people are saying then, when does it become too much when the officer's shooting? Obviously, they're going off instinct. They have these last-second decisions, but oftentimes it seems excessive to some people, and they say, you know what, you never know when somebody's heading out late at night to work, or they're going to be around, and then they could be put in harm's way too. Sure,
and I understand people's concerns about that. I mean, it's a valid concern. I mean, you have to be alert and obviously don't try to go into places where these kind of situations would happen. And if you see something happening, unlike my father years ago, we'd be walking along, you'd see flashing lights, and he'd want to go that way, and I'd be off duty, and I'd be, no, we're going the other way. And that's the thing. But like in the Tory Breedlove case, multiple officers fired at the same time, which made me feel better about the grand jury deciding not to indict the officer. That was a good ruling based on what we saw there. And he wasn't unarmed. What he was is he was armed with a 8,000-pound vehicle.
A vehicle, yeah.
Right. So you have to look at each situation. You know me, Heidi. I'm not the guy that says every officer does it right every single time. But most of the time, these are good, hardworking men and women trying to do a difficult job, making split-second decisions. And based on their training, they, in the Tory Breedlove case, all pretty much made the same decision at the same time, which made me feel better about that particular one. But you have to look at each case. It just seems like there's a lot of them now, and that's why it really sticks in people's heads.
But you don't think overall there are more shootings?
No, but I think the message that's going out here is to the bad guys: if you're confronted by law enforcement, cooperate with their verbal commands, show your hands, because we always look for people's hands. That way there's no misunderstandings at all. And that it'll de-escalate the violence as opposed to escalate it, because from what we've seen in these latest things, the Satellite Beach, Tory Breedlove, those cases, it was a suspect that escalated it, and the officers were responding to the suspect actions.
Something to think about. Dr. Richard Weinblatt, thanks so much for joining us in talking about this conversation a lot of people are talking about in their homes this morning. Thank you.
Heidi.